Thank you. So I'm having this set of slides, and it's just been sent out as a PDF. So what we do know, I'm going through now. There is also some of them I just jump over. They are put in just as information source. So, but what we do know now about this coronavirus is a pandemic, is that all sorts of weird infections have been known to jump species from animals to humans several times in history, and also to mutate, so human-to-human transmission occurs, and that is what has happened now. And the epidemics have always existed, but due to the increased mobility and people traveling all over the world, crisscrossing, and the very large concentration of people in small locations, it's called urbanization in the big cities, these infections can spread much faster and become more difficult to contain. So, but there's not really anything new on having an epidemic, and the world has known for about 15 years since the first SARS epidemic in 2003-04 that a new one was on the way. So there's not really any surprise here. But the interesting thing for me as a nutritionist, and I also have training in public health and a lot of science training, is that how can we look at the difference between the people that get really, really sick or die or get long-term consequences compared to the ones that don't get sick? Because in all these respiratory infection, there are some people, they don't feel it at all. And this time what happened was that Europe got crazy, and they were really, really scared, and a lot of old people died in Italy, and the media made a big scare. And that big scare went on to most of Europe, and it also arrived here in Africa. But what we have seen now over these past, we're going to 8 months, is that Africa is doing much better. There is no comparison as how Africa handles this compared to the rest of the world. And I am so happy and proud about the way Africa is doing it. But there are some nutritional factors. And the one most obvious one, we have now around 30 studies demonstrating that vitamin D protects. It protects against getting the virus in some part, and it protects against how severe it becomes. So vitamin D is super important. And it also fit with the waves of the different transmissions that in the winter time, like February, March, April, early spring in Europe and the US is where people are lowest on vitamin D. Then summer came, they managed, now the cases are spiking again. We also need to look at zinc and selenium because Africa have big problems in the soil with these, and there are some fruits and vegetables that may slow the entry of virus into the body so the immune system better can cope. And we have to talk about bioflavonoids and a lot of other natural substances. And moringa is one of them, but moringa is not the biggest part of this because the vitamin D is going to be the biggest part. And it's very easy to get enough vitamin D only if you know how to do it. So here, the next one here, I'm not going into it, but it's just to put our memory to that infections have been here all the time we have lived on this planet. So we have many, many different microorganisms that we have to learn to coexist with over times and lifetimes. And meaning we need to look at the type of infectious agent, and the immune system are equipped to cope with this. But we should also maybe remember that the immune system may have a limit, a loft to how much it can cope with. So we have to also take good care of ourselves and our communities so that we do not put anyone at unnecessary risk. Here, the next one here is just a screenshot from the tracking of the global spread of the coronavirus, and the red one, the red dots, are all the cases. And as you can see, Africa is doing much better. The spread of cases has a lot to do with the policies put in place by the governments. And what we do see here is that Africa did have about a month extra to prepare. And at least here in Ghana, that month was used beautifully efficient. So still, the number of cases has to do with the policy making and the restrictions and the lockdowns and all that. But here in Ghana, we have had 3-week lockdown in April only of the 3 big cities and no universal lockdown. We do have some restrictions, but that's it. So, and then life is going on as normal. There's not really any big issue here. The next one is the one when you go into this homepage, you can click on the one called case fatality ratio. And that's a lot of white dots, and they of course are smaller because whenever anyone get an infection, whenever like 100 people get an infection, most of them will manage by themselves, by their immune system, by their lifestyle. And that's what we're going to talk about. How can we put more people into the group that manage well? But you again see here that in some areas of the world, the white dots are large, and in some areas they are almost absent. What you also see in Africa is across the Sahel area, Mali, Niger area, the white dots are pretty big, also in Egypt. But the rest, they're white, they're very small. The mortality, the people that die from this virus is much, much less in Africa than elsewhere. And that is because Africa is more clever in many ways. Would you see the worst parts are that the Caribbean area, Mexico and Caribbeans are doing bad, and also the western part of South America is doing very bad, and Europe is doing bad. The mortality rate in Europe was in the spring, in Italy, Spain, France, it was about 12 to 15%. And here in Ghana, it has been 0.5. At present, it's 0.67%. So meaning that Europe have done a very, very bad job of handling this compared to what we're doing here. And if you look at the number of cases, the next slide is the WHO dashboard, and I'm not gonna say more about this. You can go in, look at it, do the calculations. But again, we see that compared to the population of Africa, the number of cases is much, much less, and the fatalities is much, much less. Okay. But still, it can be severe. And what we do know is that I'm on the next slide now, the risk factors. That is if people are too heavy. So obesity, chronic kidney disease, which we have lots of here in West Africa, and lung diseases, which is also quite prevalent in Africa due to the use of firewood and charcoal for cooking. And if there are any problem with the immune system, heart disease, and so on. Diabetes, sickle cell disease, asthma. I mean, there are lots of situations that may put people at risk. And that is because all these conditions on the bottom line, they have the body is in a state of excessive inflammation. So inflammation is a necessary process to protect the body, but from whatever injuries, infections, and so on. So when we get an inflammation of some reason, we get tired, we get sore in the muscles, we make a little fever, we get very exhausted, and so on. And that is a protection mechanism. But many of these diseases are diseases because they generate an excessive inflammation, and then when you get an infection on top of that normal excessive inflammation, then something called a cytokine storm can happen, meaning that the immune system cannot really put the brakes on. It's normal for the immune system to make a lot of noise when there is an infection, but it also have to stop again. And if the immune system cannot stop, then we get a cytokine storm, and that is how people die from this. It's not that this infection is much worse than anything else, it's just that it's unknown for the immune system, and the immune system may overreact. And especially it overreacts in these people who have other background issues with their health. So, there are many reasons why Africa is doing better. So I'm not going into the policies at all because they are very widespread across Africa. I know East Africa and South Africa have had very tough lockdowns, but we didn't have that here in Ghana. So
we don't have bad lockdowns in East Africa.
You don't? Which country are you in?
Kenya, Nairobi.
Okay. No, Kenya is not so bad. Uganda was bad. I have a project
Uganda,
in Uganda.
Rwanda,
Uganda was really we had to send the money.
Never had a lockdown.
No, that's true. Tanzania. Yeah. So you see, there is a big variation on the policies, and that's too much to discuss. But okay, so what we have here is that there are some genetics. It has been shown that the blood group distribution is different in different people, in different groups across the world. So what we have here in Africa is a lot of group O and some group B and much less of group A. And China very early on showed that blood group A were overrepresented in those that became severe. So, and we don't have that many of these people here. We have more of the other ones. And then there are something called the ACE receptor genotypes. The ACE receptor is the door lock that the virus get into the cells. And there are 3 different genotypes. There's one called II, one called ID, and one called DD. And it has to do with deletion or insertion of genes, but the DD is more prone to severe infection. And there is not much study on this in Africa, but it has been shown, likely, we know that the case numbers are very high in the Middle East, and they have more DD, where a country like Denmark have a lot of ID. So they don't get sick, and that means they are making a lot of noise on the political level because they think it's not dangerous at all. So these is also genetic distributions. We cannot do anything about them ourselves. It's just how we have been, how we are created through our parents. And then the major factor is largely what we call the demographics. Here in Africa at large, we have a much younger population. So the mean age is younger, only in the 20s, and it's only like 3, 4, 5% above 60 years of age. Whereas in the US and Europe, it's about 15 to 20% that is that old. So, so that also matters a lot because a young immune system is more flexible, it's more potent, and that does matter, that Africa is doing better. We also have a lot of very rural populations with less risk because the virus doesn't travel that good when their people don't live close together. But then on the other hand, we have the low-income slum areas with very high risk because of household congestion and infrastructure. And then we have the climate. It has been shown that this virus is not surviving as well on surfaces in a hot and humid climate. And that's why I think we don't see a lot of hotspots like in transport and so on. And people live more outdoor in the low-income communities without the AC. So if we compare the cases to the Middle East, yeah, they have a very hot climate, but they are also much more indoor and have AC and so on. And AC has been shown to be a very big risk for spreading in those communities. So then we have another situation that has been, it's very interesting, the vaccination against tuberculosis. We have universal vaccination in Africa, and also along many other countries in the world. But those 4 places that never ever had universal vaccination for BCG, for tuberculosis, is the 4 countries that was very, very hard hit. And they have had to impose very tough restrictions to manage this. That is Italy, Belgium, Netherlands, Holland, and the US. They only had BCG vaccination for special groups, and it was never used much. So, and they had mortality rates climbing 12-15% in the beginning. Remember the New York history. So it seems like 50, 70 years ago, there were public policies in place because of severe tuberculosis, and then you vaccinated the whole population at birth. And that vaccination actually trains the immune system in a way that is good for this situation now. So this is also something we have no influence on because it was done so many years ago. So yeah, so and then if we look, the next slide goes on to, it's the one, it looks like this. And it has to be, it is about how we handle a new virus like this. And when we meet a new microorganism like this virus, we first of all have the first step of our defense, and that is called the non-specific physical and chemical defenses. That's like the skin, the mucous membranes, and so on. And then if the virus or whatever bacteria or something bypasses this first step, it goes into the next step, is called the innate immunity. So the innate immunity is part of the cells, macrophage, neutrophils, basophils, monocytes, and the complement system. And if that part is efficient, it will create, it will wipe out the virus. And I think that because of the poor sanitation we have in a lot of Africa, it is a big problem in schools and so on. People's immune system are more competent. They are used to deal with a lot of different bugs and germs, and that is smart because it's more alert. And it could also be that close contact with animals could provide a better, like what we call cross immunity from other coronavirus. There are many, many coronavirus. This is not the only one. There are like more than 20. And because people live closer to animals, they may have met an animal coronavirus that is not the same as this one, but a little bit similar, so their immune system is more alert on this. And then at the last step in dealing with it, it's the adaptive immunity, the acquired immunity, and that one is specific. So the first 2 steps are non-specific. And it's obvious here that people have, young people and people in this living condition have a better non-specific immunity. So, and it's also shown in the UK that the ones that became severe were having shortcuts on the one cell type called the basophils. And the basophils, it was very specific. They have done some very amazing studies, especially in the UK, because they had so many people that died from this. And they showed that the basophils getting low, or basophils being low at baseline in some people, made them so much more sick and into hospital and into ventilators and all that. And we can do a lot with our nutrition to keep the basophils. That is among these that the flavonoids and moringa and lemons and all these natural foods will help to keep all these cells in a good shape. So the immune system is complicated. That's the next slide, looking like this. And I'm not going to go in details because the time will run, but just remember that on the left side of this slide, we have this innate immune system. And if that runs crazy, if it cannot, it has to be efficient, but it also has to be able to stop. And if it cannot communicate efficient to the adaptive immune system, sort of to finish off the infection, then we have this inflammation that runs crazy and cytokine storms that kills people. And that's not so good. And then I have a couple of slides on what we called epidemiological transition and the double burden of disease. And that is actually quite well described here from Accra, from Ghana. But it is a balance between the population having infectious diseases or chronic diseases. And the ones that are having a lot of chronic diseases are the ones that are sensitive to get severe coronavirus things. So what we have in the next one is what we call the double burden of malnutrition. And and that is because a lot of the people that live in big cities, they tend to be overweight, and it's getting worse and worse because we move less on our feet. We have more transportation in the cities. We move less. The food may be less healthy. And that feeds this chronic disease problem that is very prevalent in all the higher income countries. So when people die in higher income countries like Europe, Central Asia, it's like close to 90% that dies from chronic diseases, not from infections. Where here in Africa, it's like 40% that dies from these chronic diseases. But so the population that at risk for severe coronavirus is much less here for now. And I do hope we have what is called a window of opportunity for prevent some of these chronic diseases in Africa. And the three big things here is vitamin D, it's essential fatty acids. I'm not going to talk about them today. And then it's the green leaves with moringa and all the other green stuff we can eat. And there are two slides showing the same, so I don't go into the other one. And I shift to vitamin D now. And vitamin D is necessary for life in all higher animals. Humans are also an animal. So the vitamin D is a primary biological regulator on almost all tissues in the whole body. It is actually a hormone. So when we get it in, it has to be converted in 2 steps. And it works as a hormone that regulates almost everything. So here on this list is, can you turn out the microphone, whoever has it on? The tissue distribution of the vitamin D nuclear receptor called the VDR receptor, you can see this list of so many different tissues, meaning that vitamin D regulates the activity all over the body, much more than just the bone. We learned as kids it was the bones and the teeth. That's not true. It's much more prevalent. Okay. So their next slide is a shorter one on all the effects that has heavy, proven scientific background for showing the importance of vitamin D. And the next one is this one here. Shows how many people are low on vitamin D across the world. And that is many. And Europe and US is worse than Africa. We still have sunshine. We still have a more outdoor life. And here in Ghana, there are no studies whatsoever because the public severe cases of coronavirus. They are starting now in Northern Europe to give out, like Scotland has just passed a bill or whatever it's called to give out vitamin D supplements to all their vulnerable people, because in the winter time up there, you cannot make the vitamin D in the skin. So I think this is the most important information you take home, is to take some of the clothes off and get out and get some sunshine. And it is all over the world. We see a lot of coronavirus in Brazil, especially in the Amazon rainforest, where people are living under the trees. They are also, even if they live outdoor, they're still low on vitamin D. So this is very, very, very important. We looked at what if there is a saying here among doctors that, oh, morning sun. You just get 10-minute morning sun, then you have your vitamin D. And that is simply not true. So we calculated 9 to 10 a.m. And in the northwest countries like Mali, Niger, and so on, you cannot reach this level in morning sun. You can also not reach it if you're veiled. So the very Muslim communities where especially the women are wearing veils, they can also not reach a protective level. And that is one of the reasons I think we see a higher mortality in these countries. So you need to have some skin exposed to the sun for a given time. Okay? Does anyone have questions on this one right now, or I progress to zinc? So zinc is a trace element. Zinc is a trace element. And we are not going to go into details, but this next slide is a slide where that shows all the documented effects of zinc in the immune system. Zinc stops the virus from going in through the receptor, and it stops the viral replication inside the cells. And it has a lot to do, but zinc is difficult to get inside the cells. So what has been shown in case studies in the US is that the stuff called quercetin helps zinc inside the cells. And it's found in the citrus fruits, the green leafy vegetables, and red onions, and moringa. So moringa is pretty high on quercetin and another related substance called quercitrin. And so zinc treatment is actually the primary treatment for coronavirus if you treat it. And you know, there has been all this discussion about chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, if it works or not. It does work if you give it together with zinc, because what chloroquine does is that it takes the zinc inside. And a lot of the other substances do that as well. So chloroquine, quinine, quercetin, likely also maybe neem. There are lots of things that help zinc to go inside, but you need to have the zinc. And the next slide here is one called, it's just a documentation that the zinc finger antiviral protein make that the immune system can handle the coronavirus better. So, and it seems like you can see here, there is a list of all the different coronaviruses in animals and people. And there are the one called alpha and the one called beta. There are many, many of them, and we have to get used to live with them. They are not going to go away, and they mutate. So, but what we have here for the world is that The next slide shows the soil problems with low zinc. And what we see here is that it's good that people in Africa live more outdoors, but we have widespread zinc deficiency in the soil, like Brazil, most of Africa, most of Asia, most of China. So we need, as farmers growing healthy food, we need to look at supplementing our fertilizers with some trace minerals so we get zinc inside the plants. And if you want to look at where to get the zinc, there is one slide like this. And of course, if you have or you know someone who have zinc deficiency symptoms, then it's even more important to get going with a supplement, like unexplained weight loss, wounds that won't heal, children that have difficulty learning, decreased sense of smell and taste, diarrhea, problems with the appetite and the skin. And there is a list of food on the other side, zinc supplements can be necessary, but of course the very rural population of Africa does not have access to that. But those of us who are in the city, we can access it. It's not expensive. And for coronavirus, we have to take it together with an absorption enhancer, like quinine, chloroquine, artemisinin, quercetin, moringa, lemons, and all that. Selenium is also important. Selenium is, I'm not going to say so much, but it protects against severe infection, and it also protects against mutations. So it stops, if you have enough selenium, the virus is less likely to go wild. So and the selenium in the food is tricky. It depends on the soil. And there is one slide here that shows us like meats and seafood are the best sources because there are selenium in the sea. But grains, cereals in a low selenium soil like UK, they are very low. In Canada, they are much higher, 5 times higher. So it can be a little bit difficult. Fruit and vegetables are not good sources of selenium. And selenium is also low in soils. So here is a slide where all the red parts are the low selenium areas. And funny enough, we see most of Europe, Northern Europe. We see parts of South America and large parts of Africa. So, and also we see that the area of China here where Wuhan is over here is a low selenium area. So if the mutation happened in China, we don't know for sure, but it's more likely to happen in a low selenium area. So there is also something about the iodine, but I don't think we have time for that. But I think as farmers, it would be nice to look into foliar selenium fortification if we are growing something in these areas where it's low. It works, it's very efficient, but selenium is not necessary for the crops. So the crops are not going to tell us if they are low or not. They cannot. The selenium is not a crop nutrient. It's a human and animal nutrient. And I see animals here in Ghana dying from what is perceived as selenium deficiency. Okay, so then if we change to the next subject is the molecular modeling. The Chinese did very early on a lot of molecular modeling on computers on which natural substances that may prevent the coronavirus from getting inside. And they came up with a long list, and it is here. Rosmarinic acid from salvia and rosemary, oleanolic acid from olive oil and olive leaf. And actually we have a herb here in Africa, no one uses it, a scrub, it's growing everywhere, that has oleanolic acid in, but I will say more, not today, a different time. Hesperidine and neohesperidine, that's citrus peel and especially lime. And what I did when I had coronavirus was that I took like 20 lime fruits and poured boiling water over them and let them sit for a few minutes. And then I blended the whole thing with water, so I had a mash, and then I drained it off. So I had the pits were not there, but I had all the bitter lemony taste, and I froze it in little portions in ice cube trays, and then I had like one full lime fruit every day in whatever I drank. We also have the stuff called lutein. It's in all the green leaves, kale, parsley, spinach, broccoli, peas, and moringa is a very good source. Licorice root, and then quercetin, as I mentioned before, green tea, many fruits, berries, vegetables, and moringa is very high on quercetin as well. So all these substances may prevent the virus from getting in. And if it even gets in, it's going to be less. So the immune system can handle it. Also, one medication that is used in Asia is this one, ivermectin. It's an anti-parasitic medicine that we can buy everywhere here. We use it for chicken. And that one also works. They use it for mass treatment for coronavirus in Asia. So there are many ways to deal with this that are not told. So the next slide here is one from, it actually comes up in the scientific literature. This one, when I start.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we are live on broadcast again, so you can start. The rest can join.
But which slide did you fall off? Do you know that?
I was
on the Chinese studies on molecular modeling here.
Yes, that's the same page.
Did you get that one?
Yes, that's where we are.
Okay. So I just say that there are lots of things we can do in our daily lives to protect us. And even if it may not protect 100%, the level of virus getting inside the body is going to be lower so that the immune system can handle it easier. So, and I think here we have the moringa, we have to use olive oil, we have to eat a lot of citrus. And I described how I blend it. I do that regularly. I blend the lime fruits and squeeze it. So I get a very concentrated lime mash, which I freeze in ice cubes so I can put it in my drinks. And then we have all these herbs. And I think one of the reasons that many people here handle this better is because we still eat homemade food. But the next slide is this one. And that is interesting because it's one of the first times I have seen a high-level immunological scientific journal called Frontiers in Immunology come up with a nutritional paper on how to handle this best possible. And they have based it on the Mediterranean diet because this was written in Spain. But they say, okay, cut out sugar, cut out sugary drinks, reduce the calorie intake. When I had the virus myself, I ate only one meal per day and then a very small snack later. So because the immune system works more efficient if you eat less. And then eat mostly vegetable protein. Hey, but that's what people in Africa do. We eat a lot of beans and greens and so on. And then it's interesting here what they say, increase the quantity of polyphenol-rich fruit and vegetables and herbal infusions may help preventing hyperinflammation. This is a high-level scientific journal on immunology that mention nutrition as so important. And when we look at what we have in moringa leaves, we have all these polyphenols. We have, they have all these dangerous names, but quercetin I have mentioned now as a means to get zinc inside the cells. We have the isoquercitrin, all these other ones, myricetin, vanillin, camphorol, chlorogenic acid, all of these ones are in moringa. And of course, we cannot guarantee any specific level because it will vary with where the moringa has grown. But I think, and this is my comment, that the dosage of these mixed green leaves in case of infection should likely be in the range of 100 to 150 grams daily. And that could be moringa, spinach. Here in Ghana, we have the one called boko boko, basil, amaranth greens, all sorts of greens. All the green, kale in Europe, you could use kale, broccoli, all these things are here. But we have to remember that moringa is the same plant family as the kales. So the moringa have all the same protective stuff as the cabbage family, like kale and broccoli, also protecting for breast cancer and all that. So I go out myself every morning and I collect a big handful of all these green leaves I have. And then I chop them up and eat them in my omelette every morning. And I do that almost every day. So it is important. And these things are coming forward in high-level scientific journals. So I really do hope that this coronavirus situation, it is a little difficult and it's not so bad here in Africa, but I really hope it becomes a gift of teaching people how to handle their own health better, because we need to do that. So what we do in Ghana, we're almost done now, is that the Ghanaian model here, we have had President Nana have spoken address to the nation. This is number 10, but I think we're up to 18 now. And what Ghana has done is contrary to the governments in the US and Europe. Ghana have implemented a holistic model of caring for her citizens based on a combination of state-of-the-art epidemiological and political interventions. So we have done testing, tracing, and isolating people. And they have done an amazing job on making testing available, free for everyone. You can test for coronavirus all over the country, and the samples go with drones to the labs every afternoon if there are samples. At 3, 4 o'clock, the drones are sent to the 3 labs that are doing the actual testing. And then Ghana decided to treat early. So Ghana decided very early on to give it a shot. So Ghana actually treat all cases with a 5-day package of a synthetic herb and vitamins and zinc for help the immune system cope. And it's very interesting also that instead of the drama coming up from Europe, oh, this is dangerous. It can be dangerous. Yes, it can. Ghana say, oh, yeah, we treat you just to be sure that you manage well. And that is a different psychological approach compared to Europe and the US, where they make a drama. But actually, Ghana treat people that test positive for coronavirus with an artemisinin derivative. It is registered for malaria. So it was already in the country. Government seized all of it for the COVID cases. Vitamin C, zinc, and encouragement of healthy living, rest, hydration, more fruit and vegetable, natural foods, and stay fit. And of course, we also do the whole thing of physical distancing, hand washing everywhere, and face masks. That's fine. But this is one of the very few countries in the whole world that acknowledge that people's own immune system matters in handling this. And we have a very, very low, the mortality is 0.6% at present. And we have been through an election campaign. And so Ghana has really shown that this can be handled by doing all the epidemiological stuff that we have to do, but also by listening to what the immune system needs for handling this virus. And that's it. So that was my last words. I'm so proud of Africa at large. And I'm especially very proud of Ghana for handling it this way. So I will finish for now. So now we can take questions, unless I have been running away with the time. Yes? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
More.
No, the moringa, the moringa does not have vitamin D. The vitamin D you have to get from sunshine or a food supplement or from fish and eggs.
Moringa will also step in with.
Yes. No. Yeah, we have a, yeah. Okay, so with the moringa, we do not have vitamin D in the moringa. It's not true. The only vegetable that have vitamin D in it is mushrooms, but the level is too low
That's
to
right.
reach anywhere
Yes,
in this
yes.
situation. So we can eat mushrooms, but they're healthy for other reasons, but they cannot manage the level of vitamin D needed for this. The only way you can reach this level of vitamin D is sunshine on 25% skin for about 1 hour every day. And then you can eat fish and eggs and all that, which Africans are pretty good at doing, better than Europe and the US. But still, it doesn't go a long way. The sunshine is much better. So all the school kids, they should be out doing garden work an hour midday. I know it's hot. I know it's not pleasant, but it's natural. So the moringa have not the vitamin D, but it has vitamins, it has minerals, but the minerals depend on the soil. So you cannot trust moringa as a zinc source, for example, because it depends on the soil. But as farmers, I think we have to look into putting the trace elements, the trace minerals into our fertilizers, the compost, the liquid fertilizer, whatever we use. Because I had the soil I worked on, which is not the place I'm going to stay, I had 0 zinc in the soil. I measured it. I had 0 zinc, I had 0 copper, and the moringa still grew beautiful. So the moringa don't care much about the soil. That's why it's so easy to grow. But it does not guarantee that we have the minerals in the moringa. But what moringa do have is all these flavonoids, all these, it's called secondary plant substances. And they are in a lot of these green stuffs, in kale, broccoli, salads, all the African greens, the amaranth, the boko boko here. But the moringa is one of the richest sources. And it does matter because it helps the immune system in controlling the whole situation. The immune system is a very holistic equipment we have in the body. You know, it's not an organ, it's all over. So the immune system have to start efficiently. That is the innate part. And Moringa helps that. But it also have to stop. It also have to break down and say, hey, okay, cool, we have done the job. And and Moringa and especially vitamin D helps that part too. So we should not overstimulate our immune system. We should reach a level of efficacy and competence, not overstimulation. So so Moringa is super good, but it's primarily on these secondary plant substances from the polyphenols here. They are, yes, but the vitamin D is as important. And I think when we go back and see how many people are really low on vitamin D here in Africa, the situation is better than Europe. But we still have a lot of people who are low, who are tired, who get muscle pain when they walk. I cannot tell you how many people I have seen here that were tired, couldn't walk. They had been to the hospital, they had used all the money in the hospital, they blah, blah, blah. And I give them 1 month supply of high-level vitamin D and they're good to go. So many people are low on vitamin D, especially the women who may be more living indoors, the school kids, the young ones. And we actually had some young one dying from COVID here in Ghana also. And so, I mean, when there are not many studies for Africa, but when Ethiopia, which is one of the most sunny countries in the whole world, can have like 90% of the school kids are low on vitamin D, and Nigeria can have like 83% of the females and 45 to 50% of the males being in the low end, then we do have a problem. And South Africa is further away from the equator and is more at risk than the middle part of Africa. So Moringa cannot do the vitamin D part, but the sun can do that. And the Moringa can, yes. Also meaning that a lot of the more poor part of the populations here, they walk more. We had, the data is not out, but I saw data here from Central Accra, where they had done a serological survey of antibodies for coronavirus. And it's not public, but they said that maybe about 1 million people had been exposed and had antibodies, but we only have 300 people who died, meaning that people here who walk around a lot and they're outdoors all day, they don't really get sick from it. So it is all the office people here who are in danger, not the ones being in cars and air conditioned and the sort of more well-off part of the population that are mostly in danger. I don't know how that fit with South Africa, but in most of Ghana, we don't even have coronavirus out in the rural areas. It's in the cities only. So so we have to combine the sunshine on naked skin and about 1 hour per day for dark skins. So it's very simple and it's gonna be efficient. It works. Well, yeah.
Oh yeah, I want to ask a question.
Yes.
So is like you said, the moringa, what quantities should you take? You know, like just
nobody knows. Yeah, nobody knows.
and
Nobody knows for sure. But I would say what I do myself is about 50 grams of fresh leaves. And then I add up something, something more, boko, parsley, basil. I take about 50 to 100 grams of green leaves every day.
How about powder?
Powder, that would be, 1/6 of the dosage. So it's like 10 grams at least. That is a very big. How much? The powder is so? How much does 10 grams? What is the volume,
The what?
Mariana? About 2 tablespoons. 10 to 12 grams of powder. Would that be 2 tablespoons? Yeah, 10 to 12 grams. That's 2 big tablespoons, I think.
Oh, that per day.
No, but
So
if
per
you
day.
have a virus, you want to.
When you sick,
Yeah.
taking the let's do.
Yeah.
10 grams is
Yeah.
2 tablespoons.
Yeah, I think it is, but you may have a wait and try to check it.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't produce anything yet because I was at one place where the land was, and then I'm changing to another place right now. So I'm buying the land now, but I'm gonna do oil. So,
Thank
so
you.
I just have
Thank you
moringa
so
in the
much.
garden. Yeah, you're
Thank
welcome.
you so much, Eva.
Okay. Are that pandemics happens. It's nothing suspicious about that. And but we have nutrients that are able to help our immune system cope better, and that is what makes a difference on people who manage well and the ones that don't. So vitamin D is a key nutrient here, and then we have the zinc, selenium, and the fruits and the bioflavonoids, and where moringa is part of that. And then there is one slide just with all the bugs we can get. And it is a battleground between the body and the bugs. And the more competent we are, the better we manage. And the next few slides are the global registrations on how is cases going. And the one with all the red dots are the number of cases. And we can see here that the case numbers have a lot to do with the policy put in place by governments on how to contain this. And Africa is doing better. And we know, everyone, that US is doing terribly bad. They are up and around 112,000 new cases every day because they let the virus run rampant because of Donald Trump. But Europe also had big problems. And then the one with the white dots is the one that shows how many people actually die with the coronavirus or from the coronavirus. And we again see here that Africa is doing better. So what separates Africa from the rest of the world? The next one is the WHO's dashboard, where you can go in and look at this. You can click on the country, and then you can see how the development is. So South Africa, of course, had a lot of cases here, but it seems to South Africa is going to summer now, and meaning the cases will go down. And we also see if you divide the deaths, you divide the number of deaths with the actual cases and multiply by 100, you get the fatality ratio. And here in Ghana, it's 0.6%, and I think it's about 2% in South Africa. So, and then we have the risk factors are well known, like obesity, kidney disease, lung problems, diabetes, and so on. And that is because we have a hyperimmune situation. So the immune system is in an inflammatory state. The whole body is in an inflammation. And when you get an infection on top of that, the immune system can run rampant and create what is called a cytokine storm. And that is what kills people if they get killed. It's not very many that get killed, but it still can happen. And then we have factors for Africa, excluding the policies, but the genetics, the blood group distribution, we have much more blood group O here. and less A. And the Chinese showed very early that A blood group was the more susceptible one. And there are also receptor genotypes not much is known about these in Africa. There is a little bit study from South Africa, and I think there were more of the susceptible one in South Africa and in the Middle East. And we have a young population, not so many old people. 3 to 5% here versus 15 to 20 in the US and Europe. And then the climate, the hot and humid and more outdoor life makes less transmission. We also have, the next slide is the one with the tuberculosis vaccination. And actually, tuberculosis vaccination is a kind of vaccination that helps the body develop immunity in especially the innate system. And the few countries in the world that never had universal BCG vaccination is Italy, Belgium, Netherlands, and the US. And they are some of the countries where they had really trouble containing this virus. It ran wild and they had very high mortality in the beginning, 12 to 15%. So the next one is how do we manage? And this shows the 3 steps of what happens in the immunity when you meet a new invader. And the first one is a non-specific part, the barriers, the mucous membranes, the skin, the coughing. And the next one is the innate immunity. The innate immunity is non-specific. That is kind of a lot of cells with all these names, basophils, monocytes, and so on, that take care of everything that comes in. And the innate immunity is super efficient. And I think that because sanitation is a big problem here, people's immune systems have been trained since childhood in coping with a lot of bugs. So people's immune system here are very efficient. I don't see a lot of common cold and flus and so on. It doesn't happen around me. And even if people have a common cold, it lasts for 1 day. And we also live in closer contact with animals. So we may have some cross-immunity protection from other coronaviruses, because there are many types of coronaviruses, and it's very few of them that are actually a problem. But animals carry coronaviruses, and we live closer to animals in Africa than they do in the US and Europe. And then the last part is the adaptive immunity, the 2 different pathways. And that is actually the only one you reach when you do vaccinations normally, but the BCG vaccination is different. And then one of the immune system here, again, it's the innate immune system that can run rampant and kill people if they cannot make a competent switch and circle. So we need the vitamin D especially for this, to be able to control the immune competence. And then there is a couple of slides here with the double burden of disease, and we have studies here in Accra, Ghana, that the balance between infectious diseases and chronic diseases, and the populations that are at greater risk from coronavirus are the ones who have the chronic diseases. And that is like 80–90% of all deaths in the high-income countries are due to chronic diseases and not due to infections, where in Africa it's 30–40%. So, and I think we have this window of prevention with vitamin D, essential fatty acids, and greens. And I'm not talking about the fatty acids today because it's too much. So, and that's this next one here shows the one with circles. It shows the same, it's just put a different way. So just move on, Clement. Just move on again. Yeah, one more. And then one more. So these were about what is called economic transition. So the next set here is on vitamin D. And vitamin D is necessary for all animal life. And it's a primary regulator of a lot of different processes. We learned in school that it was bones and teeth, but it's much more. And the tissues that express the vitamin D receptor is here in the blue box, and you can see it's all over the body. So vitamin D regulates virtually everything. And on a molecular biology level, it has the sort of the key to put in place the self-healing capacities of the cells. So that's why. The next one is the one with the sun, the blue, and the sun in the middle. And that is, again, just a more simple way of saying that vitamin D is involved in everything. So, so it's very important that we get enough vitamin D. And then the next one is the global map of what the vitamin D levels in adults are worldwide. And you can see the different colors. So the dark ones, they are in severe, that is the percentage of the population that is in severe deficiency. The gray in the middle, they are also in deficiency. And the light gray is the percentage of the population that is suboptimal. They are not up to the best level for their immune system. And you can see here, like in many countries, it's like 80%, 70 to 80% of the population not being fit on vitamin D. Hey, UK, what happened in UK? In wintertime, early spring, that is where the vitamin D levels are the lowest time of year. It's close to 90% of people being low on vitamin D, and they couldn't find out to do whatever was needed for the containing of the virus. So of course it ran crazy. Of course, it's not really mysterious. And we also see, like, even here in Nigeria, we have like maybe around 80% of the females being suboptimal, 45 to 50% of the males. And I mentioned that in Ethiopia, where there's a lot of sunshine, there are close to 90%, around 90% of the school children are suboptimal. So we really, really need to get enough vitamin D. And it may not prevent completely against getting the virus, but it may control the response so it doesn't get so severe. And then the next slide is this with the immune system and the endocrine system. We're not going into it. It's just a chemical land map over. It's everywhere. It's important. And it has become a big problem because we are much more indoors. And kids are in school. We are less out in the farm. It's more pleasant to be indoors. It's cooler. We have climate change coming, making the weather even more hot. And we have pollution in the big cities. The pollution is a mega problem for Africa in the big cities. And it is a disruptor of the vitamin D efficiency. And the next one is the one with the immune system. And all the bright yellow little boxes are all the sites where vitamin D is involved in the immune system, which means everywhere. So vitamin D is especially necessary for translating the communication between the two roads in the immune system. So so people who are low on vitamin D, they are just compromised on handling any infection. And there is a meta-analysis here showing that if people are low on vitamin D and you give them a supplement, the protection is 70%. That's a lot. And but everyone will be protected around 25%. You just imagine these countries that have crazy number of cases. that if you could cut the cases by 25% in the population at large, that would help a lot. And if you could cut the severity in all the vulnerable people, wow, that would be amazing. And then the dosage needed is around this 50 to 75 microgram of intake. And there are lots of people who have difficulty being out in the sun, they are overweight, they have digestive problems, and when we age, our ability to create vitamin D goes down about 25%. So those of us who are a little bit older, we need to be even more alert. And the food levels are here. So the one way you could do it is to take a spoon of cod liver oil every day. That is very efficient. But normal foods, it's not, we cannot get a level where we are really protected. And what you see here, the one showing with the colors, the blue, yellow, and green, is from the European Food Safety Association agency in Italy, and it shows that the level of vitamin D you need to reach a blood level that protects you is in the range of 50 microgram upwards per day. It's not enough to have the recommended dosage, the government say, of 10 to 15 microgram is not enough to protect you for these infections. And here in Africa, we have a lot of little kids dying from pneumonia, not from coronavirus, but from other types of infection. We have hundreds of thousands. And they would also be better off if they were more outside. So all the schools should get going and get the kids outside in midday. So we have done a calculation here. This is not anything you can look up because Tofik and I did it here. And the sunshine, it's midday is best. The amount of skin has to be about 25% exposed. So you cannot wear heavy clothes or veils or things like that. It's not going to be good. The skin color determines how fast you make the vitamin D, meaning that people with darker colored skin have to be outside with more skin exposed for a longer time. And the location, the further away from the equator we go, the less efficient is the sunshine, meaning you also need more time in South Africa than we need in Ghana. The way to calculate it is on the next slide. But the 25% equivalent is the face, the neck, the arms, and the hands. So you cannot have your body covered to get enough vitamin D. It's not working. And we also, unfortunately, see more coronavirus cases going severe in those countries in the desert area like Niger, Mali, and so on. So here are the time you need. We calculated it for across Africa. And what you see, if you have the pale skin type like Mariana and myself, and you go outdoor midday with naked arms and face, it's fine with less than 10 minutes. Then we have produced about 50 micrograms of vitamin D in our skin. If it's overcast or scattered, you need a little bit more. But if you have dark skin, like skin type 5 or 6, you need like at least half an hour upwards to 45 minutes if it's cloudless. And we are talking about midday. We are not talking about 9 a.m. If it's scattered, you may need more than 1 hour, especially in South Africa. So I think there is a lot of educational and how to organize society, because this has implications far beyond coronavirus. This is about all infections. This is about all people getting weak bones. It's about people getting learning difficulties in the school and mental stability and mood swings. All that will respond to sufficient vitamin D. So a lot of health problems will go away if we get enough vitamin D. So, and zinc is a mineral. And not to go through, but you have these green little dots here, and they show where exactly in the immune system is zinc working. And for coronavirus, zinc is partially blocking the receptor that takes the coronavirus into the cell, and it also blocks or diminish the replication, the virus growing inside the cell. So a lot of these medications that are tested right now, like chloroquine, quinine, and so on, they are actually working mostly by getting zinc inside. They're not working on their own. They're working by helping the zinc. And also the green stuff, the stuff called quercetin, it's a lot in all the apples, honey, raspberries, the red onions, the citrus fruits, the green leaves, the moringa have the quercetin, and it helps the zinc to get inside. But the zinc have to be there in the first place. Zinc is also necessary for the normal part of the immune system called the interferons to work. So if there's not enough zinc, the interferons cannot attack the virus. And this is just this one is just a map over how many coronaviruses we have in the world. It's a lot, and they're not going to go away. We cannot wipe them out, but we can have a lifestyle, and we can protect ourselves and our communities and teach people on how to deal with this better. And unfortunately, we have deficiencies in the soil in large parts of Africa and Brazil, and Asia also on zinc. So we may, as when we look at the farmer hat, we have to look at putting these trace elements into our manure, the compost, the fertilizer we use, because it's going to help people's health in the long run. And here's a list of the zinc deficiency symptoms, like wound healing, problems with learning capacity in kids. We see that a lot here in Ghana. Decreased sense of smell and taste, diarrhea, appetite, sores. And the foods are over on the left side, and if you want a zinc supplement, it's in the round one. So, but you have to take it with someone who helps the absorption, so it doesn't just get turned out. But like dark chocolate is a very good source, and shellfish. Selenium, you can say about the same. Selenium stops partially the virus from multiplication inside the cells, and it protects the body from the immune system's attack on the virus. So selenium is very important too. And it comes from the soil, and it's not necessary for the plants, meaning that plants will grow fine without the selenium. And the amount in food is highly variable. Like seafood is the best. And the fruit and vegetables are generally not very good. But depends on what is in the soil, and it's very often necessary with a supplement. And it's in the blue dot. So, and again, we see here large-scale soil deficiencies in Asia and Africa, and also part of Brazil. So I think as farmers, we should look at how to maybe start to use a foliar selenium fertilizer, something. I don't know exactly how to do it, but Finland, up in the red dot of Scandinavia, they started with selenium added in all the fertilizers, and they have, it's about 35 years ago, and they have cut down on heart disease and a lot of things. They enrich with vitamin D, and they put selenium in, and they have cut, like diabetes type 1, it's disappeared. No new cases, and heart disease have gone down like this with selenium. So we need to look at this on a country level on how to deal with it. And then the next one here is all the natural substances that may prevent the virus from getting so much inside the cell. I don't say it's preventing completely, but it might help. so that if you get the virus, you only get a small amount, and then the immune system can better cope with it. And the Chinese did what is called molecular modeling studies. It's called docking studies, that they looked at all these plants and medications who could eventually protect to some degree. And there were lots, like rosmarinic acid from salvia and rosemary, olein and oleic acid from olive oil, olive leaf. And we have few other plants in the world that make these substances, but olive oil has it and olive leaf. Hesperidine and neurohesperidine in citrus peels. Lutein in all the green stuff. Moringa is very good for that. Licorice root is good. And the quercetin again, green tea, fruits, berries, vegetables, and moringa. All these substances can help us cope with it. And in Asia, several countries in Asia use a medication called ivermectin. I guess everyone that has animals know it as a dewormer. And it has been given out here in Africa and South America. It is used for treatment of microfilaria, which is this little parasites that cause liver blindness. And actually, globally, about 500 million people is treated every year with this. And Asia is using it as a mass treatment for coronavirus right now. So there are many, many things we can do. And the next one is here, the paper that came from Spain on how to deal with it, what is sensible. But especially don't take the sweets and take a lot of polyphenols and eat less. Because when you eat less meals per day, then your immune system increases the competence. And I say that I think if you have an infection, you have to have around 100-150 grams daily of mixed greens, like moringa, spinach, boko boko, basil, amaranth, whatever you have. And that's what I did myself when I had it. The Ghanaian model is very different from what is happening in US and Europe, and I'm very happy for that and very proud of it. So Ghana actually are of course doing all the physical distancing, hand washing, face masks, and so on. We are in the finishing part of an election campaign, and we had cases going up, but not many sick people. And that is because Ghana treat coronavirus cases with an artemisinin derivative. It's registered for malaria. It's a synthetic form, but artemisinin is going to work as well. But in an acute situation like this, you cannot step up the growing of plants fast enough. So vitamin C, zinc, and encouragement of healthy living, rest, hydration, more fruit and vegetables, natural foods, stay fit. And the Ghana it's very special because the rest of the world is not doing this, but it works. We have a very low mortality here. So that was about the words. Thank you. Are you happy now, Clement?
Thank you, Eva.
Okay. Welcome. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I hope you have something to work.
I have a PhD now in Corona.
Yes,
virus.
almost. We have to go out in the communities and teach them.
Yes,
they
definitely.
need sunshine on their skin. Yes, yes, yes.
Wow.
I think this is a good start. To even have this out there to educate people is an excellent way to go. Thank you so much for the time. I know we dragged it a little bit longer than but thank you so very much. We appreciate that, and I've learned quite a lot already.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Eva.
But Clement, you take some vitamin D supplements. You're in Europe now?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, you're in Europe, so you take vitamin D. You take vitamin D when it's winter.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay,
I appreciate that a lot.
You're welcome. Okay.
And,
okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.
Many thanks.
Okay. Bye.